I was probably only 17 or so the first time I watched Eko Eko Azarak on SBS, Australia's then multicultural channel that aired a lot of world movies and extremely bizarre TV shows late at night. I used to stay up late on weekends and watch whatever bizarre outing they saw fit to air that particular week, and it was where I first developed my taste for a lot of the stranger horror and action films I still enjoy. Eko Eko Azarak, a tale of witches and warlocks and a ritual to resurrect Lucifer in a Japanese high school, was one of those films, and although I only ever watched it that one time, it stuck with me over the years and the then decades that followed. Man, I feel old. Anyway, I watched this film again recently for the first time since then so that I could review it, and surprisingly, it holds up quite well. It really is an odd little film, a fascinating blend of Western horror and Eastern horror, set almost entirely within a single school building, so let's delve in and take a look at what makes Eko Eko Azarak so fascinating all these years later. The film was originally released in Japan on April 8th, 1995, placing it almost half a decade before the Japanese horror renaissance that the likes of Ringu and Ju-on later brought. It was based on a manga by the same name, but because I haven't yet read that manga, I'm not going to be comparing it here. I'm going to be solely looking at the film as a standalone movie. It was directed by Sato Shimako, who also directed the sequel and, perhaps most interestingly for me, also went on to work as a CG movie director at Capcom for Resident Evil Code Veronica and Onimusha Warlords. Now that is cool. Her work on the film also garnered her the Minami Toshiko Award at the Yubari International Fantastic Film Festival that same year. The movie stars Yoshino Kimika as the main character, Kuroi Misa, and Kanno Miho before her turn as Tomie, who seemed to spend a fair bit of her early career kissing her female co-stars. Get it? The film was reportedly made because Sato, who went to the London Film School and filmed Tale of a Vampire there in the early 90s, returned to Japan and decided that she wanted to make something similar, but set there. She remembered reading the Eko Eko Azarak manga when she was younger, and so set about adapting that to the screen, blending both East and West in a horror film centered around a female witch. The film was made in only 2 weeks, with Yoshino, the film star, in her debut role. She reportedly only received the script the day before filming began, and by that point hadn't even met Sato either. So, to say it was a rush job would be a bit of an understatement. But knowing that, I think that just makes the end product all the more impressive. Don't get me wrong, this film isn't high art. Far from it. You can see the low budget and rushed filming schedule as you're watching it, and the acting doesn't always hit quite right either. It's low-budget horror set predominantly in the one location, but by the same token, that doesn't mean it's trash either. Again, far from it. This is a great film, just not without its flaws. The basic plot is that a group of magicians want to resurrect Lucifer. Their ritual involves killing people across the city at points that mark a large pentagram, with the school our movie takes place in located right in the center. Their goal is to finish off some final sacrifices at the school, and this will then summon the Dark Lord himself. Pretty simple, right? Except for one small problem. A transfer student by the name of Kuroi Misa shows up at the school right before they complete their ritual, and oh yeah, she's a witch, and she's here to stop them. Misa is aware of what's going on and starts investigating the school as more and more strange happenings occur there. She shows off her powers by cursing one of the pervert teachers when the others try to place a hex on him, but when he is actually injured the next day, the other students realize she very well could be the real deal and grow terrified of her. One of the female students is also involved in an illicit relationship with their female teacher. And yes, warning, you probably shouldn't watch this film with your parents around. You will see a decent amount of uncomfortable scenes if so. But it turns out that maybe their teacher isn't as innocent as she seems either, and the further Misa digs into matters, the more she realizes that something very bad is about to go down, and soon. Oh, and yeah, maybe our homeroom teacher is trying to summon Lucifer. You know, these things happen. There is a decent, well-told plot here. This isn't a massive, sprawling story, and it benefits from being set in the one location with a small group of characters. The only adults we ever really see are the two teachers, and although there are some extras filling out the school, the story also focuses mainly on a group of 10 or so students from the same class. As such, the story is able to focus only on what it needs to, and there's no unnecessary fluff. The film is only 80 minutes long, so it's pretty much constantly going from start to finish. It's not rushed, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's the exact length it needs to be to tell the story it wants. But how is it on the horror front? Honestly, it's not bad. It's quite dated now, coming up on nearly 30 years since it was made, but that era holds a special charm to it. As I mentioned earlier, this was many years before the likes of Ringu and Ju-on, and it doesn't focus on ghosts or anything like that either. This is evil magicians and witches, but set in Japan. You have voodoo dolls and curses, but they're Japanese style as opposed to Western. You have magic and spells, which again are informed by Western styles and chanting, but still retain a Japaneseness to them. The film is not overtly scary, not like you might expect from Japanese horror that came in later years. This isn't about slow building tension and wondering where the ghost might pop up next. This is more of a slasher, if you will, with the film opening on a particularly gruesome death in full view, and the second half of the film offing almost the entire cast in bloody ways. There is one scene, however, coming right around the halfway mark that is, to me, the standout of the film. The students, finding themselves locked into the school at night, are exploring the teacher's room to see if they can find help or a way out, when half of them are suddenly flung from the room and the doors slammed shut behind them. Misa tries in vain to break the spell locking the other students in the room, but it's useless, and they have to watch their classmates die horrifically inside a room, flashing with light as blood splatters on the door windows. A tally of sacrifices on the blackboard magically counts down with each death as the students inside scream for their lives and the others can do nothing but watch. It's so well made and honestly terrifying. A prime example of less is more. What you don't see is often more terrifying than what you do. We're not in the room with the students watching them get killed. We're with the students outside in the hall, watching helplessly and left to imagine what's going on as their friends scream in terror and bang against the door before finally falling limp and silent as blood splashes all around and a number ticks down, indicating their deaths. Horrifying. Japanese reviews for the film were generally positive. I noticed that scene I talked about just now was mentioned quite a few times as a standout, which I obviously agree with, and criticisms that scenes like the relationship between the teacher and student brought little to the film and felt somewhat out of place. Again, I mostly agree with this. That relationship had zero bearing on the plot, and by the sounds of things, the director wanted to include some love stories in there, so that's probably why we got both that and Misa and the random boy whose name I can't even remember towards the end. Neither had any bearing on the film, but the director apparently wanted some romance in there, so... There was also a lot of praise for the special effects, considering the film's low budget and the time it was made, and the casting of the two female leads as well, with Yoshino bringing just the right amount of gravitas to her role as a young witch and Kanno bringing both innocence and cruelty to her all-important role as Misa's new friend who may or may not have something to hide. Overall, the film has been viewed rather favourably in Japan over the years, and that unique mixing of Japanese horror with Western elements has helped it to stand the test of time. Numerous sequels followed this movie, although only the second film retained the same director and lead actress. I'll no doubt cover those on this channel at a later date, so keep an eye out. But if you're looking for something to while away 80 minutes, you could certainly do worse than this film. A film that remains an important part of Japanese horror history with some rather unique influences. But what do you guys think? If you've seen the film, let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. And I'll see you again next time.